Hello my brothers and sisters of the Order, welcome back to the Order. I'm Celtic Templar, and today y'all, we're actually going back to Star Wars for May the 4th. And today we're going to be talking about Darth Vader. Now, I want to put this out here, Darth Vader is probably one of our biggest type of, fan deals out there. And I always wanted to know who Darth Vader is actually based on. Well, while doing research, I actually tried to discover this, and actually discovered he's not exactly based on one person, but three. That's right, three people. Now, I wanted to put this out here, y'all. This, I don't think George Lucas knew at all when he came to making this type of person until long after, so, maybe. It's kind of hard to say. But while doing research on this, I discovered that, actually, the way we had to look at Darth Vader is actually from the original understanding. One, we had to look at Anakin Skywalker, then we got to look at Darth Vader himself. So that way you can understand how he fell to the dark side of the Force. Now, one is the fact we had to understand that Darth Vader's original form is based off of a medieval knight, especially from Italy during the Renaissance period. This person was born in 1511 to 1554, and he was none other than Aldo Bello. Aldo Bello was actually stated to have actually been an orphaned knight. That's right. His mother died in childbirth while his father died fighting for his noble lord. That would be Antonio Godo. Antonio Godo had actually taken in none other than, Aldo Bello, and in such actually trained him in the ways of the medieval knight. So in such, Aldo Bello was technically a knight, but also a noble lord. It's confusing, I know, but the medieval Europe was kind of like this, especially in the late period, especially when we take a look at, I want to say, Guspon Vering, the man with the iron hand, who of which was a knight, technically also a lord, and as well a mercenary. And such, he didn't exactly bow to any other nobleman unless it was the king himself, or the Holy Roman Emperor. In fact, that's kind of how it was back then. But if we take a look at this, Aldo Bello was actually, kind of a great warrior. He was stated to have fought valiantly on cavalry warfare, and in such, he was the greatest cavalier ever to be seen on the battlefield. He was a great leader and such, so we can understand how he became, like that. And such, they could see that George Lucas put him in as Anakin and copied off of that. But we gotta understand, from the original ideal point, when he pulled this type of information out, he might have gotten the idea of how Padme should have died and such. However, this is what I want to call a little weird and very messed up, is on the Padme for this medieval knight. One we have to understand is that Renaissance Europe was a major time of, I guess you could call it Renaissance gangsters, I guess you could call it like that, or Renaissance mafia, because technically that's what the medieval knights in Italy were. They were kind of mafia lords, kingpins and such. So, kind of not the best idea to live in Italy at that time. But we have to understand that Aldo Bello was actually, a knight, but he wanted to become a lord. Or in this case, a Jedi Knight wants to become a master. See my point? And the thing is, there was one way that he could have done that, especially marrying a nobleman's daughter. Problem is, he had no eye then for none other than, Antonio Godo's wife. Yeah, this is where this gets really creepy, and Antonio Godo's wife was half his age. I'm not kidding, literally half his age. And Antonio Godo knew, Aldo Bello as a son because of the fact Aldo Bello had his father, served underneath, Antonio Godo. Now, we don't exactly know when Antonio Godo was born, but it's stated he died in 1553. And in such, it's actually stated that Antonio Godo had actually, fought and in the major battles for the said control of Italy or such underneath the Italian kings. So we could see under that. And as well, he also fought for the Holy Roman Empire, so it's kind of confusing. I know it's a little too confusing. However, we do understand, though, is that Aldo Bello fell in love with his, noble lord's wife. And in such, he had even actually seduced her in a type of way and such by sending her romantic letters, yada yada yada. We get the whole Romeo and Juliet crap. So, you see my point. So, what exactly happened? This is where it gets a little weird and such, because apparently he dressed up as, well, Antonio Goto's armor and in such, or a type of version of armor in his size, and in such had actually, this is what the wife did, she actually wanted the noble knight to romanticize with her, so doing it in the dead of night, such and such, in the armor, and blah blah blah, and you see my point. However, they would only do this whenever Goto would actually be, well, out of the area or the castle, and in such, we can understand why. Now, one thing we also had to understand is that when Antonio Goto had always returned, it would always be loneliness for both of them. It stated that, well, none other than Aldo Bello believed that they were meant to be together and heaven willed it. So, guess what he decided to do? He decided to, well, kill his noble lord and become the true lord of the area, or nobleman. And in such, this wasn't uncommon. Problem is, it did not go that way. One we have to understand is that when Aldo Bello had actually, well, started his rebellion, it started in 1553 and 52. One major thing we have to understand is when he had done this, he wanted to actually try and, well, make it look like it wasn't him, but he would be the hero. He had actually hired mercenaries from Italy and the Holy Roman Empire, and in such, he had actually given them a chance of, well, gold and all that, and well, kill none other than Antonio Goto. However, he wanted to make it look as though that these mercenaries were just rogue military knights that were just trying to plunder the area. And in doing so, when Antonio Goto was informed by none other than Aldo Bello, he actually informed, well, him that the area is under attack by medieval, well, knights, or brigands, bandits, whatever you want to call it. In such, they had seen that they were terrorizing the town to the west, so they went after it. Problem is, as soon as this was to happen, it's actually stated that Goto's wife had cheered him on and wished his safe return. As soon as this had happened, Aldo Bello believed that she was just, well, playing along. But here's the thing. Aldo Bello's face was never seen by the mistress of the area. So, you see where this is going to end up badly. And in such, when Antonio Goto had actually, well, defeated the brigands and such, it's actually stated that most of the knights were away. But when none other than Aldo Bello was walking right behind his noble lord, he had drawn out a rondel dagger and shoved it deep into his armpit. If you don't understand what this means, it's the unprotected area of where there's only male. In fact, medieval suits of armor didn't exactly cover the entire body. So only male was underneath this type of area. And he took a rondel, which rondel daggers were meant to get through male armor, and shoved it in, through his lungs and his heart, killing Antonio Goto in the process. Not before he looked behind him and saw that his own noble knight, the one he believed would actually be, well, his true friend and ally, and in such, his own brother in arms. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? He stabs you right in the back, or armpit in this case, and in such, you actually lose everything. So, yeah, what happens after this? Well, with Goto's death, it's actually stated that, well, Aldo Bello would later on ride to the castle and stating, well, the following sentence to his mistress. He stated, "He is dead, my love, and in such you are mine, and I am now lord and master of the area." It stated upon hearing this, the mistress was entirely disgusted. She said she had never fallen in love with a man that of which would be so low to kill such man of glory. And in such, it's even stated she jumped from the tower, or in this case, the room. We don't exactly know where the castle is, but all we do know is she committed suicide right after this very start as soon as this man said it. However, there are many tales and versions of it that said she took a dagger and stabbed herself. I don't know which one it is, because she stated the following, that "I will never give birth to a bastard of a man who is a murderer." and in such a betrayer of honor. However, we don't know if she would have said that or not. We don't know. However, it's actually stated that Elobello would actually fall into a deep despair, and in such would ravage himself with the merrymaking of wine. And, well, it's stated that later on he would have been arrested and hung and killed on the spot. So, in other words, he was a lord, but not for long. So we can understand how George Lucas might have copied from this, which is kind of a cool idea. This is kind of the version of how Anakin turned to Darth Vader. And in such, well, wanted to become a master. So, and wanted to be with his love for the rest of his life. So we could see how that makes sense. Another one we can also take a look at is Hoga Ichiro. Hoga Ichiro was actually a Japanese samurai during the time of Oda Nobunaga. Now, if you don't know who Oda Nobunaga is, he's a Japanese, type leader in history, or daimyo. And in such, we can understand that this guy was actually known to be our Vader, before Vader learning that he had a son. So, who is this guy? Well, it's actually stated that Hoga Ichiro was actually a Japanese warrior of death. It's stated that he was nicknamed Nobunaga's Butcher. He would actually slaughter many clans in Japan. He was stated to be the most devilish type warrior ever seen, and as such would charge in a type of frenzy of killing. It's stated that in doing so, he had actually installed or ordered that his samurai, especially his mounted samurai, to fire a form of matchlock while riding into battle, and in such would then drop a said spike or spear and such in order to break up the enemy formations. In such, he was, well, a gruesome killer on the battlefield. It's stated he was born somewhere between 1521 and died somewhere in 1571 in a major battle. He had actually fought in such great battles and such, who of which, well, were, gruesome. He had actually served Nobunaga from somewhere between 1570 and 1560s. So, we can understand of how between those 10 years, he could easily have been known as the Butcher because of his great rampage throughout Japan. So he tried to unify Japan in the name of, well, the Japanese people. Problem is, he had really underestimated the hatred that people brought up against him. And in such, the fear and hatred that he had brought up before people, many people wanted him dead. So there were many times that people tried to kill him, while he slept, while he ate, pretty much whenever he did anything. In fact, it's even one time stated that Hoga Ichiro was nearly killed while he was sitting on the toilet. That's kind of... But apparently it's stated that the assassin, which was known as ninjas, or such, which I just call it an assassin because it's a little better sounding, because I don't know why. But anyways, he apparently was about to sit on the dang toilet and crapped immediately. But here's the thing, what happened before that? What we have to understand is that before he was about to go and take a dump, he was called to the ministry in order to actually, take care of something real quick. In fact, apparently he, this is kind of a little hilarious part of which I don't know why, but this is too damn funny not to laugh at. Apparently, the assassin hid in the toilet underneath. In fact, it'd be kind of like, for example, we taking a portable porta potty, for example, and somebody that's sitting down in the toilet area, which is completely disgusting, I know, but this is the best way to kill the guy because it makes some sense. So, what exactly happened? Well, take a guess. As soon as you were to actually sit on the thing, the assassin was supposed to stab upward and probably into his, area. So, in other words, he would have gotten infected and pretty much died, which is not the best way you want to die. In fact, many kings in history have actually died this way. One famous king in general, such as Edward the Longshanks, or Edward I of England, was said to have died from dysentery. So, there you go. And dysentery is not the best way you want to die. In fact, you are entirely in pain, you're and you're spilling poopage and blood out. That's disgusting, and it's not the best that you want to see or smell. So, yeah. Now, in truth, though, before Hoga Ichiro was ever to go on the toilet, apparently somebody had beat him to it and ended up getting killed himself. That's kind of hilarious and really stupid if you think about it. So that's kind of funny, but you gotta admit, the one guy dies while the assassin runs away. It's kind of like the old Total War assassin missions that if you fail. So that's kind of hilarious on how this could have happened, because this does sound like something that could have happened. And in doing so, Hoga Ichiro would always actually take a personal chamber pot to wherever he went, just in case, because he stated he did not want to actually be killed that type of way. So, yeah, just imagine that if somebody actually carried a little chamber pot on them for the rest of their life. I know that sounds really disgusting, but you gotta admit, this guy really took it seriously. And in such, he was known as the Butcher of the said Japan. However, most documentation of him is left faded. What we do know, though, is that when he died in battle in such a manner that he had killed at least 50 other samurai before being killed himself. It's stated that the samurai had all ganged up around him, and those 50 kept dying left and right until he was finally killed. So in truth, it took probably dozens of samurai probably just to kill the guy, and in such, he was technically, well, the samurai, or the butcher samurai of Oda Nobunaga, which is how we get our version of Vader, for example, who of which actually does look like he's wearing samurai armor, ladies and gentlemen. Seriously, if none of y'all see a samurai there, I swear you do not know Star Wars. Now, one thing I do have to explain, though, this is how George Lucas actually wanted Vader to look, because you gotta admit, this does kind of look cool and nearly similar to the Japanese samurai armor, so he probably got influenced by it to create this. But you can see my point, though, that he might have also taken some Japanese characters into history. But the third one he took a place from was also from Japan, and also during Oda Nobunaga's period. And that is actually, I believe it was Sunda or Sanda Akeo? Sunda Akeo, I believe it was. It's kind of hard to pronounce this one. Which betrayed Nobunaga. It's actually stated he was originally on the side of Nobunaga, but actually started to betray him for one major reason: the protection of his family. Which, if we take a look at it, at the very end of Darth Vader's period, he's trying to save his family and his son. Now, if we take a look at that entirely, we can see that, well, Sunda Akio was actually trying to protect his family in general, especially his pregnant wife that was now in the hands of, well, Nobunaga, especially held as prisoner. In fact, it's actually stated that none other than Nobunaga had actually requested that all the attendants actually bring their wives and family members with them to a party. And in such, it's actually stated that Sunda Akio was actually incredibly worried that what might happen if his wife was brought with him. However, it's stated that Sunda Akio would actually state that his wife would not be brought with him at all. So what exactly did he do? Well, he went alone and told that his master, well, Nobunaga, that she was actually ill at the point that she could not exactly walk. Nobunaga took this as a little bit curious, but he also stated that everything was okay, as long as we can bring him over to it. But the thing is, Nobunaga was kind of, well, worrisome in history. Why? Well, kind of obvious. He was wanting to control Japan, and in such, he was technically not the greatest good guy, but he was somewhat different. But we have to understand, though, when this actually did happen, Akio was, well, born in 1520 and died in 1593. Now, we do have to understand is, well, when he tried to save his family entirely, he was serving Nobunaga, but he worried more and more of what might happen. That is why in the later years of Nobunaga's reign, he would actually later on betray him. And in such, it's actually stated that Sunda Akio would actually fight in many battles against Nobunaga, using tactics that he knew that the Japanese army needed in order to survive. In fact, Nobunaga would still rely on Akio, but it didn't end so well. It stated that Sunda Akio would actually cause the major defeats for, well, none other than Nobunaga, such as the Battle of Ino, or as well, also, Okozumama, I believe it was, and Induma, I believe. But still, we gotta understand that these three major battles would later on bring the downfall of none other than Oda Nobunaga. And in such, it's stated that none other than, well, Suda Akio was wanting to actually behead none other than Nobunaga. Problem is, we know one thing from history, Oda Nobunaga would actually later on commit seppuku and as well lock the door behind him to make sure that no one would follow. It's stated that in such his body was burnt and no trace of him was ever found. So we gotta understand that apparently Akio was trying to save his family and in such betrayed his own master. Now, one thing we do have to understand though is why in history would someone do this? Well, one, would you want your own family to be in the hands of a ruthless killer who of which was controlling all of the said region? And in such, it's actually stated that Sunda Akio had actually heard stories of many of Japanese noblemen's women or their wives and such being raped, and as well their daughters being raped also by none other than Nobunaga. We don't know if that's true or not, so I'm not even going to try answering that one, so yeah. But we do have to understand that while this actually happened, soon after Nobunaga's death, he did try to reunify Japan in a peaceful manner, but sadly failed, and in such died a broken samurai. It's stated that he was once never wanted to actually unsheathe his sword after Nobunaga's death, and actually stated to even have it broken and placed inside the sheath for the rest of his life. Now, we don't exactly know what actually happened to him, or the sword. Our best guess is that after World War II, for example, the sword might have been stolen by US forces. We don't know. All we do know is that it was entirely lost to history. But we can understand that this is kind of a really cool thing. So Darth Vader is actually based off of these three people. One would be a medieval knight from the Renaissance period of Italy, and in such would be Anakin Skywalker. The second would actually be the one that would be the major butcher of Japan who served Nobunaga, and in such would be the man who of which would be, well, Vader, especially during the early years prior before Luke Skywalker. And in such, the last one would actually be the man who actually betrayed his own leader and master. So entirely, we can see on why George Lucas might have actually installed these guys into the said series, or, well, versions of Vader. But entirely, if you ask me, Vader is entirely a Japanese character, but that's the only difference. But in truth, we can actually understand that Vader does look just like a samurai. And in fact, that's what technically got George Lucas to think, I can create a, well, Star Wars samurai, which was kind of a good idea at first. So it still is, and it still looks badass. In fact, I'm not much of a Vader guy, I'm still much Darth Maul guy. I don't know why, I just am. Even though he is an assassin, but you gotta admit, he's a badass one. But anyways, guys, hopefully you like this, like and subscribe, and also click that bell button for notifications if y'all are wanting to stay tuned for any other videos. As well, if any of y'all have any ideas for next year's May 4th videos, so please let me know in the comments below if you want me to talk anything about Star Wars, that of which can actually be traced to history. Anyways, guys, hopefully you like this, like and subscribe, and also click that bell button as I stated, so that way you can stay tuned for more videos. And also, if any of y'all want to, you can even check out our Facebook, so that way you can actually see other stuff in history. Anyways, guys, hopefully see y'all in the next one. Have a great day, and may the Force be with you.